Welcome to the Juice Consumer Direct Podcast. I'm Nate Clegg, and I'm here again with Carson Poppinger and Jacob Thorpe, and our guest, Patrick Oborn, who is the co-founder at Telarus and an old friend of the program. So tell us about yourself and how you got to know Squeeze.
Thanks a lot, Nate. My company, Telarus, we do a lot of technical advising and consulting, and we were looking for some leads, because who doesn't need some leads to call, right? So we called you guys up. We put a program together, and I've kind of been in contact with you guys ever since we ran that program. And now I'm an investor in the company. I'm a huge believer in what you guys are doing, the approach that you take to the market, and some of your really creative methods to generate leads and help companies convert, which is huge. You're a chief revenue officer. Chief revenue officers know out there that, without the quality leads at the front of the funnel, everything else behind it is really second nature. So I'm just glad to be here. You guys run a great shop, and I'm excited to be part of your podcast. The juice is loose. Let's go.
Yeah, the juice is loose. Well, yeah, we're excited to have you here, too. We were talking a little bit earlier, and you kind of told us some more about yourself and some of the cool things that you've done, and including the Cocodona 250, which, when you told me about it, the 250 in there represent miles, in case you're wondering, which is like not just an ultramarathon, it's like an ultra marathon. So tell us more about that. What got you into it? Why did you do that to yourself?
Oh my gosh, that's a great question. One that I asked myself several times during that race itself. The ultra running in general, it's just kind of an extension of just trying something new and seeing where it goes. When we first moved our company to Utah, I tried a little triathlon, and I was really terrible. So, but my nature is try something out and fail or do terrible, but then figure out what it was I did terrible at. Dissect it and figure out where those little areas of improvement lie. And so that little triathlon eventually grew into Ironmans. And I got to be semi-competitive in Ironman. I'm a competitive guy, played sports growing up, played 1 year of football in college, so I still mentally consider myself a D1 athlete, even though I was a walk-on, but that's another story. And then those triathlons ended up me focusing on running, because running was my worst element of the triathlon. I could swim and bike really well, but my run was bad. I kept getting passed by people and embarrassed, and I wanted to get better at running. So I found out about ultra running. I found out about the Wasatch 100. Just happened to be at a hotel that was the finish line of the race, and it had some signage inside. And I was like, "What's this?" And they said, "It's the Wasatch 100." And I'm like, "People do this?" And they go, "Oh yeah, this is the finish line." So I researched it online. And I'm like, maybe I try that. So I tried the Wasatch 100, and I did terrible. And I almost had kidney failure and a whole bunch of bad stuff happened, but the same thing, same process, like analyze it. David Goggins talks a lot about, the going after, I forget his exact words, but it's basically like looking at your effort in retrospect and diagnosing the areas that you can get better. It's the same exact thing. So I did that, and the next year I came back and I cut off 4.5 hours off my time, and then I started getting better and better, but then I came to like this area where I plateaued, and for 2 years, my times were identical. I worked out, I did everything I could, but I hit the glass ceiling. Same thing as triathlon. I hired a coach that specialized in ultra running. He taught me the tricks. He taught me how to eat right. He taught me how to train right, everything else. And then the glass ceiling was removed, and then the times got even better, and had some really good results in the last couple of years. 3 or 4 different victories, some top 10 results, and some hundreds. And so stuff that I never thought ever. Like, I'm just a regular dude. I'm just an engineer. I'm a software developer. Like, what business do I have being on the same course as these runners? Like, some of them are sponsors. Some of them are in magazines. Some of them are running coaches. Like, their lives are running. My life's not running. My life is my family. My life is my work and the investments I make. But yeah, it was a very, very interesting path of how it led to that. And then ultimately, the hundreds became kind of comfortable. And I'm a big believer in growth happens on the other side of the boundary of your comfort zone. Like, that area out there is where the good stuff happens. The area in here, it's comfort, but you're not really progressing at a very good clip if you're in your comfort zone. So I learned about the Cocodona 250, and that seemed like something like super hard. Like, it's so far out of the comfort zone. It's like in a different zip code of the comfort zones, right? And so I signed up for that. Hired a good team. I actually saw a friend do it once. All of us need a friend in life that shows us the art of the possible. Because when I saw my friend do it, that's the first time I thought maybe I could do it. Because before I was like, no way. That's never going to happen. That's 2.5 times further than I've ever gone. Like that's off limits.
So Patrick, just to put it into perspective, explain for those that aren't familiar with ultras what the Cocodona 250 is, because I think it's pretty incredible, like just the what you actually did and the distance and the time and all that kind of stuff.
So just ultras in general are a lot like a marathon. Marathon, everyone's bussed to the start. Everyone starts running, and every so many miles there's tables with cups of Gatorade and stuff like that. We call those aid stations. So ultra running just spread those apart. Everyone's running a little slower. Those aid stations have a little more to choose from, so you can stop and fill up your water bottles, but you can also grab some fruit, grab some food, some other things. And then, so that's really ultra marathons. And then the 100-milers, there's just 18 of those. And then you have the Cocodona, which starts in Black Canyon City, Arizona, and it goes up through Prescott, Sedona, and ultimately ends up in Flagstaff.
That's a huge. I used to live out there, actually, and real close by the start point.
Yeah.
That's a huge elevation gain, by the way, for people, for context. You're going up plateaus and mountains.
Yeah. So the total elevation gain of that race is 42,000 feet.
That's a lot.
The most of the hundreds that I do are like 21 to 23,000 feet. So it's 2.5 times further than I've ever run. It's over twice the vertical that I've ever done, and the vertical can hurt you just as much as anything else. And so, again, like the marathon analogy, things are just spread out. But then you go to Cocodona, and instead of 6 or 7 miles in between aid stations, now there's 4 stretches where it's 17 miles in between aid stations. So it's getting used to your backpack. There's some people even in the hundreds that don't even wear hydration packs. They just go from station to station and drink their way through. Marathons, no one wears anything. And then ultras, people wear the hydration packs and do that. The Cocodona, I mean, we have to carry at some points 3 liters of water. So when I put my hydration pack on, I was joking to my crew. I'm like, I literally feel like a human water balloon right now because it's so much water. And funny story, they said bring 3 liters of water, which I did. And the first stretch is very, very remote and desolate, and they only have one little storage facility in the middle of the woods where they have canisters of water, and they drive up canisters and make sure it's all ready for race day. Anyhow, they got up there on race day and realized half their canisters were missing.
Oh no.
And it wasn't enough time for them to recover. So when we got to this aid station after 17 miles, we still had another 8 miles to go to the top of Lane Mountain, and they told us all that our rations were being cut in half. So the guy literally pulls out a measuring cup and measures out 500 milliliters of water and pours it in my backpack. And I'm like, this isn't going to be enough. What are my options?
Feels like they were trying to kill you, actually.
I
17 miles is almost a marathon in and of itself,
I felt literally like I was in an episode of Hunger Games, and the game masters are like, these guys are going way too fast. We need to figure out something. He goes, sir, we can cut their rations in half. Genius. Make it happen. Like, that's what it felt like was happening in, my dark parts of my mind. But the guy said, hey, if you have a filter, which I do, I'm a Boy Scout. I always carry a filter because you never know when you're going to need it. He goes, that pond water over there where those cattle have been drinking out of, you may be able to filter some of that. And I was like, oh, that's so disgusting. I don't know how powerful my filter is, but it's probably not going to be powerful enough. But the whole epic nature of the 250 is that you're going to see things that you've never seen before. It's like a football game, and you don't know when you're going to fumble or when someone's going to there's going to be a time in the game when something unknown is going to pop in front of you, and you have to make the right decision.
You just kind of alluded to it. Your mind went to a dark place, and you're imagining these terrible things that they're trying to do to you. With that long of a race, that many miles, I got to imagine your head goes to a dark spot often. Like, how do you stay mentally tough? How do you pull yourself back out of those moments and just keep going?
Well, the first thing is preparation and homework. I knew that going into this race, the biggest challenge people would face is dehydration. So when I was presented with the choice of drink some really gross tasting water that more than likely will probably give you some GI problems for a minute, or don't drink the water, ration your water, get to the next aid station, but be super thirsty. And I knew that from the research, I should drink the water. And so I went with my filter, filled that baby up, and drank a liter of pond water with like algae and little polywogs in it and all that. But it was filtered, but again, it wasn't filtered enough. But my kidneys were fine. I got to the next aid station, I filled up with water, and on to the next challenge, and then soon enough, the GI issues hit. So it's really hard to run that long of a distance when you can't process calories. Everything's just going through you. And so I'm like, okay, it's challenge number 2, which I picked. I'd rather be here with that issue than be in the hospital with kidney failure. And several of my friends in the past who have tried this race have DNF'd, which is do not finish. They dropped because of rhabdomyolysis and kidney failure. So very, very real things. Like, this is a race where it's not for the faint of heart. Like, you could, I won't say die, you could die, but you could experience some significant ailments if things don't go your way, or you make the wrong decision. So I really see it as like a Hunger Games thing, where it's like one decision after the next. Like, what do I do? And those people in the movie, they don't really know what they're going to experience next. It just hits them, and then they have to make instant reaction decisions, and hopefully be with other teammates that can either validate that decision or maybe suggest something alternative that might be a better choice. And that really kind of bleeds into the team aspect of the race.
Did you have a support team for the event?
Absolutely. In fact, for most races, you need like 1 or 2 crew and 1 or 2 pacers, 4 or 5 people. For this race, I had 12 people, so it was a lot. It was Team Patrick. I had people that were driving our RV so that we could have a place, out of the elements to like change socks and lay down for a second, maybe even cook some food, all of that type of stuff. I had people who were pacers who would run alongside me and help me with different things. One of which was just make sure that I was eating and drinking, because there's going to come a point where you're losing control, you're losing your mind, because it was kind of a sleep deprivation exercise.
Yeah, I'm doing the math. Like, this is a day's thing. This isn't like, 250 miles. I don't know what the pace is. What does it look like? What's the time commitment?
The race has a cutoff of 5 days. so yeah, you don't stress over the little things when you're running a race measured in days, not hours, not minutes, not seconds. And so having that team around you to make sure that for the long run you're making those correct decisions. And the way the race played out is the first 80 miles was by myself, no pacers. So I had to be ready to run almost 100 miles, like, on my own. Once we got to the 80-mile spot, I had a pacer for every single inch of the race the whole rest of the time. So I did my homework, I did my training, and the only thing in my head the first day was I just got to get to mile 80. I just got to get to mile 80, because whatever happens to me, whatever messed up situation I'm in, whatever terrible low point I'm in, I know my crew will fix me. And so that kind of speaks to the element that I learned the most, and that's building a team that's on purpose. A purpose-built team that you pick the people that are going to be on your team, just like you pick your friends, you pick your business partners, you pick who you do business with as clients. You have to be very purposeful about those things. And so I went kind of like a baseball manager looks at his roster. I need a catcher, I need a pitcher, I need someone who can hit, I need a second baseman and a shortstop that are really, very agile, could turn the double plays. All of those things went into play. So I found a crew chief, Jen Hanna, and her husband, Marty. They were the nucleus. She's detail-oriented. She's run ultras, all of these things. They actually brought things down to Arizona that I didn't even ask them to do. And wouldn't you know it, after day 2, I needed some of that stuff that they brought, that they had the initiative and the forethought to bring. And then also I lined up some of the best runners that I know out there, not just in terms of capability, but also in terms of temperament. Like, what's the personality like? Are they motivating to be around? Because some people, it takes energy to be around them, and other people, they radiate energy. Like, I needed people that radiated energy, not the suckers. And so I picked the people that radiated energy, and I told them all, like in our pre-race meeting, I said, my goal is to finish this race. And if over time, my body's going to degrade, but my mental, because it's such a lack of sleep, even getting 10, 20-minute, even hour little power naps, like, that's not enough sleep. Your body's not going to regenerate. So I'm going to be a zombie. And I need each of you to promise me that you're going to get me to the finish line and you're not going to let me quit. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, we're good. And wouldn't you know it, I was at mile 138 coming into Sedona, which is like one of the most beautiful towns ever. I hope you guys will have a chance to visit if you haven't already. Just beautiful. I was just taking in the views, and the sun was coming out, and it was awesome. And within 1 hour, I went from feeling the best I felt the entire race to feeling the worst. The heat came out. I was starting to feel sorry for myself. I was starting to sweat. I don't think I was drinking enough. And about 8 miles short of Sedona, I just sat on a rock and I started crying. And I don't know why. I didn't think I was going to quit, but I was just in a spot where like I'd gone so far and I'd gone through so much, and I still knew there was so much more to do. Like the thought of the effort that I would still have to put forth to get to the finish was an overwhelming feeling.
112 more miles, right?
Yeah, it was a lot. It's like still that's a hefty amount of work. And with the energy levels, everything bleeding, I had Jill Wilkins, who was one of the people I specifically picked on my pacers that were going to run with me. She sat down next to me. She let me cry. She didn't say, "It's okay, don't cry." Like she said, "Have your moment, and when you're done, we're going to get up and we're going to keep going." And sure enough, I had my moment. It finally, like that emotion left, and the feeling of I can do this. Let's go. Like that came back, and when we got going again. And so she fulfilled her promise to me, as it did everybody, that she didn't take the pain away. She just had empathy, and she helped me problem solve. And that's really, really hard to do when people in your life are hurting, but they're going through something they signed up for. They're going through something that's going to teach them a lot. They're going to go through something that's going to make them a better person. Like you can't take the pain away because they need it. They have to go through it. And now looking back, I'm so glad that she just got me through it, because now I feel this sense of pride. I feel this sense of I can do hard things, like going beyond the comfort zone. I was so far outside my comfort zone at that point, man, but the learning was fast and furious. And I'm so glad that I had the chance, but I never, ever, ever would attempt something like that without that purpose-built team around me to be the safety net, to make sure that I didn't quit, and that I could get through it without taking the challenge away.
So there's about 1,000 business analogies
Sorry,
that we could probably
sorry for
take
throwing that
from
all over you,
that.
Nate.
No, you're great. And I'm just trying to like figure out where to even start with all that, because that's such an incredible story. And when we talked earlier, one of the things that I highlighted, and I took it for myself, like me personally, was you were talking about how you don't go into it thinking you're going to run 100 miles or 250 miles. Right. You run that first leg. That's all you think about. You run that first 6 miles, in your case, maybe 17, 18 miles, once you're capable of it. And that's what you think about. And then you get to that point and you say, okay, what's next? And a lot of times in business or in your own personal life, at least for me, I'm a very forward-thinking person. I'm a futuristic type person. And that can cause me to stumble just a little bit when I just need to take a break and just think about, okay, what does that next 6 miles look like for me? And make that next leap, in my life. So there's lots of really, really good advice. What do you think, Jacob? What analogy I know you had analogies going through your head already too. What do you think?
Well, I really like what he said about having a purpose-filled team, and I think you had a plan. You took the time to not just prepare yourself physically, but to prepare your team mentally and say, this is our vision. This is, as the CEO of this team, this is what I want to accomplish. And I'm not going to be at my best for these whole 250 miles. There's going to be points where I'm really struggling and I need you, because I'm not going to be enough at that point. And I think that there's a lot of power in that. There's humility, but there's a recognition of vision and buy-in from the rest of the team. Motivation and engagement and focus, they are not always linear. They ebb and they flow, and your productivity and your creativity and your ability to problem solve, for whatever reason, we're humans. But having a team around you that can say, hey, I can see you're struggling, like let's put our heads together and I'll support you in this. I think there's a lot of power in that. I hope that's something that, as we're working on our teams, that we can try to try to repeat that, and we can try to kind of bottle that up and distill it and give it to everybody, because that there's a lot of power in that. We're humans that are trying to do things. We're trying to build a business, or we're trying to run a race, but we're humans and we need that human connection, and oftentimes that's the difference in success and failure. Yeah,
and there's so many parallels of what you just mentioned from the company that I started, Telarus, versus this race experience. You talk about taking a big task and cutting it up into small micro tasks. Like the Cocodona plan sheet had 35 micro tasks, 35 aid stations. It was so detailed, and you really can't focus on the end of the race. You really just have to focus on that next aid station. And the same thing with Telarus. Like, our company is probably in its 5th iteration from where our original business plan was. But the hard thing about evolving a business or evolving a plan or evolving anything in your life is trying to differentiate something that's a tangent or something that's a necessary evolution. Because we're always presented with opportunities, and we're often tempted to chase those opportunities, and you got to know when to say no, or when to try the opportunity and give it a chance, and then cut it off because it's a no, or take that opportunity and keep going, and then actually make that your evolution. And that was the really the hardest spot. And sometimes in our business, we held on to old ideas too long, and we should have evolved faster. Other times we evolved too fast and ended up pulling back and going in the original direction. And it's surrounding yourself with a team that can recognize, team, are we doing things correctly right now? Things don't look good, but it's going to turn around, or things are good now, but this roadshow is going to end. We need to figure out what we're going to do a year, 2 years from now, because there's macroeconomics that are maybe at play that are working against us right now. Like, how are we going to pivot? And that's the critical part. And being with people who are experienced, the people who know what they're doing, people you've purposely picked, not because of what they know already, but because of their ability to problem solve. You know that if they see you with some weird problem, they'll be like, I have something we can try, because I've seen it, several times from my experience. And so that experience is everything. Again, not because of the knowledge that it brings, but because of the openness they have and their exposure to so many other ideas. And those are going to be critical in steering your business in the right direction.
Well, Carson, what do you think? You're CEO of Squeeze. What do we grab now? What do we take from what Patrick just said?
So many lessons in here, like you said, for not only business, but life in general, and just, accomplishing hard things and doing hard things. And for me, I was thinking about, the first 10 years of Squeeze and like how we kind of started from zero to get to where we were. 10 years of the grind, 10 years of just one day in front of the other, 10 years of trying to make sure we raise payroll for the next payroll that would happen. And those moments when we'd say, maybe we should just try something different, quit, move on, do something different. We were in a business that couldn't get funding. We couldn't get backers. We couldn't get, the banks to look at what we were doing and give us the capital that we needed. And so it's just like continuing day after day into this. And, the moments where you have the highest highs and the lowest lows. And I think Patrick kind of hit on that with some of that, the emotional toll that it can take sometimes. And, for me, I think fortunately, some often say is I was too stupid to quit, too dumb to quit. So, but we made it to that point where things started to click, and then we had the right people on the team, like Jacob said, and we were able to get after the right opportunities and stop focusing on the things that weren't working. And you start to optimize every little piece of the business, just like, Patrick with the race that he did. And, a lot of our clients that, we just had a client in town this last week, and we talked so much about all the little things that we can optimize and tweak within a marketing campaign, because, in order to get that campaign fully working like it should, you've got to look at every little detail. And that's important in everything. It's important in Patrick's case, life or death, surviving that race. And thankfully he did survive that race. He's here today with us. But what an awesome life lesson from that.
Well, and I think your ability now, there'll be times where it's one of your friends that's sitting on that stone wondering if they should quit, right? And you want to be the type of person that's able to sit by them, let them feel it, and just support them and say, okay, let's take that next step together. I think having gone through that, your ability to help other people and serve other people in that way is probably increased dramatically. The perspective that you gain from that struggle will make you a better person.
Yeah, it's probably the number one thing that I did learn out of this. I talk about learning outside of beyond comfort's edge. The one thing I learned is to have empathy on people, to understand what they're feeling, but also I'm more motivated to help them finish, especially the people that helped me finish, like Jill, the person that sat down next to me on the rock. I paced her for all 100 miles of Wasatch 100 this year, and she had tremendous struggles. She was crying, not because she's a crybaby or anything like that, but she had some physical pain, but it wasn't an injury that prevented her from running. So if she could just handle the pain, she would make it to the finish line. And so I stayed with her the whole 100 miles, and we got her to the finish line. And I probably felt more proud in that moment than in my own personal accomplishments. Like to see her go through that and to be there for her and everything else, just like she was there for me and the Cocodona, like it was so impactful. And next weekend, I'm going back to Arizona to help Adam Burke, my first pacer at Cocodona. He's trying his first 100, the Javelina 100, and I'm going to crew him. And yeah, I'm going to know the mistakes he's probably going to make. I'm going to know where his feet are going to get hurt. I know where his feelings are going to get hurt. I know where everything's going to happen. And so it's an incredibly impactful experience, like not only as a father and a business owner, but just as a friend in general. But just wanted to, before we get out here done, I just wanted to congratulate you guys on building what you have built. You haven't done it in a environment devoid of competition. It's a very crowded area. A lot of people trying to do what you've done, and to create call it the recipe that you guys have created between people, processes, automation, technology has just been a huge feather in your cap. And congratulations, because you're in a spot where 99% of businesses don't make. Just like I was in a spot where 99.999 whatever percent of the runners never even get to that. To be there, like I was present enough to recognize I'm in a special place right now. Like I'm going to finish this race. There's not a lot of people on the planet that can say this right now. And you guys are going to have more guests on this show that have very similar, once in a lifetime experiences. But being part of something like Squeeze is also once in a lifetime. There's not a lot of companies that you can be a part of that can come, from the basement literally and grow to where you guys are now, and still being able to adopt AI and adopt all the new technologies that are out there to help you guys drive results for your clients. It's an amazing accomplishment, so congrats to you guys.
And anybody who calls Jill a crybaby when she's running 100 miles in a few days, forget them. They don't know what they're talking about. Well, let's do some final thoughts, and we'll each get a chance to share. My final thought on this is embrace the pain, and all too often as people, we're just geared towards finding comfort, right? And that's normal, but at the same time, like you said, that's not really where growth happens. It's not on the couch or the proverbial couch, but to find what makes you grow, embrace that pain, and make it part of who you are. So that's my kind of final thought. Jacob, what do you think?
Yeah, I think I probably mentioned this already, but I just love, I wish I could have been there in that meeting before the race and kind of been a part of that, where that vision was captured and the commitments were made. I think one thing that I love about Squeeze is going to work every day with people that I truly care about and people who I know care about me. And there's been times where, because of that level of care and that level of buy-in into me personally, they've given me support in more ways than one that maybe I didn't deserve, or but that I really needed at that point in time. So always pay attention to the people that are on your team, because that is who will lift you up when you're down and you're sitting on that rock. Those are the people that will strengthen you and help carry you to better places. And hopefully you're able to enjoy that sunrise at Sedona. Maybe when you go back, you'll enjoy it a little bit more. But yeah.
What do you think, Carson?
I think the examples of embracing the pain and you have to go through hard things to really appreciate that whole experience, and then also appreciate the good times and the great things that happen. I think gives you a lot of empathy and perspective that you wouldn't have otherwise. And I want to seek out more of those experiences. I had one of our friends that spoke to our team recently. He said that too often we run away from adversity, and too often we take those opportunities to not challenge ourselves. And what we do need is more exposure to adversity, because the more we get exposed to adversity, the tougher we become, the sharper we become, the more able to handle different situations and circumstances. And so I think congratulations to Patrick for going through that and putting yourself through that and accomplishing such a great feat, because I know a lot of people that it's difficult to drive 250 miles, sitting in a car seat.
You guys want to run a 3K?
Yeah. After this,
Wait, can we walk it? No.
Let's do it. I know I need to get out and hit the pavement. So, yeah. But no, congratulations, Patrick, and it's been great having you on here. So thank you so much.
No, thank you guys. And the one thing that I learned through this whole experience is when you put yourself in hard situations, it teaches you a lot, but what it teaches you is where your weaknesses are. It's like it shines a light and you can see where the holes in your armor are, where the chinks in your armor, the things that are your weaknesses. And having that team around you to support you, and the harder the thing, the longer the race, the more your team becomes not just like a backdrop, like say hi, that you become dependent on them. And it's so weird to put ourselves in a dependency situation. We don't want to feel like we're a welfare case, we're a charity case, everything else. But those hard things force you to be a charity case in a lot of ways, because there's no one who does huge things in this world without a team, without a support system, whether you're president of the United States or whether you're running a company or whatever. Like, you're going to need that group. And I tended to be a person that's kind of like, if it needs to get done right, I'm just going to do it. I'm the guy in your college class that you guys could go hang out. I'll get the project done by the next morning and we'll get the A, right? Like, I had trust issues. Like, and that was one of the things that this showed. Like, my weakness is I don't trust people. Like, I'm a perfectionist. I want to do everything myself, but you can't go through life like that. You have to learn how to build a team and actually use them and rely on them and basically put yourself at their mercy. And that's probably one of the biggest things that I learned from this is my weaknesses are I need to trust more. I need to surround myself with maybe better people that I don't have trust issues with. I can't ever feel like that again. And so I'm grateful for that experience because, again, there's the whole empathy component and being able to help other people because now you've got this experience that you can rely on, but also not being the do-it-yourselfer. Like, there's a lot of, focus on, being self-reliant and I got to do better and me, but it's not about me. It's about you and the team that you surround yourself with. So I'm grateful because I wouldn't have been able to go through my life just with that not invented here syndrome. I'm so glad that that's gone. That's not part of me anymore.
Well, thanks again. It's been awesome having you here, Patrick, and learning from
Thank
all
you.
the things that you've done. And we have a lot more coming up in our next podcast, some great guests like Andrew Gentry. He's on the Michigan football team, national championship winner, and he's on the team this year as well as some other people coming up. So we're excited to have him here and just stay tuned. Lots more coming.
If you have any questions or comments, don't forget to leave them below. We'll get to them. And Patrick, for those of our audience that might be interested in learning more about your experience with this race and some of what you do, where can they find you?
Yeah, just hit me up on LinkedIn, Patrick Oborn. Just search my name up. I've got links to a blog a little bit about this race, and I also have a post where I link to a TED Talk that I gave about the lessons learned from this race. So, yeah, thank you.
Make sure to like and subscribe and follow us